I am in Berlin, outside the Waldfriedhof Heerstraße, a large cemetery in the west of the city. The cemetery itself is nice and quiet, just like you would expect from a burial ground, except for Saturdays and when Metallica, Elton John and Sting are in town, because over there, that's the Olympic Stadium. It's really a beautiful cemetery. It's in a small valley, it's got a small lake in the middle, and it's got this one grave which is a bit special. Well, not so much the grave itself, but rather what visitors did to it. I am outside the cemetery now. I don't want to stand in front of somebody's grave and shoot a video because that's really bad form, even by Berlin standards. But I show you this picture, which I took a few minutes ago. This is what the grave looks like today in June 2020. Rubber ducks, placed here by visitors. There are not so many of them here now. Remember, it's June 2020. The cemetery's been closed for months due to the corona crisis, and usually there are loads of rubber ducks here. 3 or 4 times as many as there are now, which is a bit weird. Because on one hand you have this massive, stately gravestone, this representation of aristocracy. The man buried here was born into a very old Prussian noble family. Composers, ministers, bishops and generals came from that family. The coat of arms that you can see on the gravestone dates back to at least the 14th century. And on the other hand, you have this grandeur destroyed by plastic toys. But I think the men buried here would have liked it, precisely for that reason. So who is it? Well, with a grave full of rubber ducks, you would expect the deceased to have looked like this. But he hasn't. The man buried here was this guy. Bernhard Victor Christoph Karl von Bülow, born in 1923, died in 2011, better known as Vicco von Bülow and best known under his pseudonym Loriot. Spelled like this. The T is silent. He was without any doubt the most famous German comedian, humorist and cartoonist in the second half of the 20th century, at least in Germany. He was a writer, an actor, a film director, and today he's most famous for his sketches, his cartoons and 2 films. In the 80s and 90s he became so popular that some quotations became a part of German culture. Try it. Whenever you meet a German you can say ein Klavier, or Früher war mehr Lametta, or Moment. They will probably look at you and say, oh my God, you know Loriot, let's have a drink together. These quotations are the German equivalent to the English phrase, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. The Germans loved him, and they still do today. And whenever somebody says the Germans have no sense of humor, you can be sure that if there's one German in the room, he or she will stand up and say, excuse me, but we have Loriot. Full stop. So what about the rubber ducks? Well, the rubber ducks refer to one particular animated cartoon. 2 men, who apparently have never met before, are sitting naked in an empty bathtub in a hotel, and they argue. The argument begins with water temperature and the question whether or not to take the rubber duck into the tub, and it ends with politics, Prussian virtues and a slight hint to sexuality. You will find the link in the description, and in case you don't speak German, I linked a couple of other sketches that were completely without language. So people from all over Germany come here, place a rubber duck on the grave as a sign of admiration and as a tribute. But as you may expect, some people didn't like it. That's undignified, somebody wrote to a local newspaper. The rubber ducks ridicule the grave. This is a cemetery, this is not a place for fun. Loriot's family didn't care, they probably kind of liked it. But remember, we're in Germany, and more than that, we're in Berlin, so there's always a few people who will say, that's not funny. Which is too bad, really. Because this over-seriousness, this German way of being too grim to take a joke, that's exactly the attitude that Loriot has always criticized in his work. His scenes were set in a middle-class or even bourgeois environment. He loved to make fun of etiquette, and mostly he portrayed people with a stiff upper lip who are desperately trying to keep up appearances, but fail. But as you can see, the rubber ducks are still here. Even though by law it's actually verboten. Not for reasons of dignity or decency, no, but because in Berlin everything you place on a grave must be made of biodegradable materials. But local authorities didn't do anything about it. They said, we won't take action, we're not working against visitors, we're trying to give everybody a chance to express their mourning and their admiration in the way they consider appropriate. And that's relieving to see. That there's still some space for irony, for humor and a bit of laissez-faire, even in Germany even in death. Thank you very much for watching. This is my new channel. I used to be a comedian and a musician, but then the Corona crisis hit the German show business and made me unemployed. So if you like my content, please subscribe to my channel and consider supporting me on Patreon. Thank you very much.